All right. So this is just a good time to check in about anything. Um, could be about tonight's talk, could be about what happened in tonight's meditation. It could be what happened this week in your practice, but it could be just about anything. I'm open to going anywhere with you that you need to go or want to go. Oh, I just thought of one more thing. I didn't talk about. I talked about at some point in this course, um, a really classical Buddhist way to, I think, increase spaciousness by broadening the viewpoint is to contemplate death, um, to just realize time is limited. In some ways, that closes you in a bit, but it also shifts the context. And I find that thought sometimes just opens things up, where something seems so important, and suddenly it does not seem that important, and your priorities become clear. So I'm just going to mention that in my talk, and I didn't. So pop in with it now. So would anybody like to talk, share? Hi.
Hi. Um, yeah, I feel like I haven't checked in very much. So, um, I, I I find it interesting. These days, I lean more toward um a little bit depressive, a little bit negative, um, in my that seems to be more of a default for me, and I have to work much harder to really open up and soften and everything. So I think what I'll check in with are a couple of things that do make me feel um, more open. And one was that this morning, um, I did go outside. It was pretty cold. And when I looked up at the sky, the clouds, they 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 weren't like thick formed clouds. They were kind of like just airy and moving very quickly in the sky. And there was something about that's not like the norm for what I see in the sky. So I was really interested in it, and um I just thought it was a beautiful sky, and I really enjoyed looking at it. I don't I mean, I used to really get very focused on some things in nature, and it doesn't touch me in the same way lately. And so it really felt nice this morning to enjoy what the sky looked like. And then I was looking at the top of the trees in our yard and the birds, and so it really became enjoyable. Um, and so, but the other thing that I thought I would say is that about a year and a half ago, I was listening to um, Sylvia Boorstein on Dharma Seed. And she said that a friend of hers had said to her, would you like to do a gratitude practice with me for the year? And so she talked about what they did, and I thought, I'm going to do that. And I did it for a year with a friend. And then this past December, at the end of December, I was telling another person I know about it, and she said, I'd like to do that with you. So January 1st again, I started doing a gratitude practice with a new person. And every day, at some point during the day, um, I'll shoot off a text to her, and she does the same to me. It's not like immediate back and forth. It's just whenever you're moved to do that. And um, I, I can't quite explain it here, but I have learned so much. This practice is so different this year with this person than it was last year. And I mean, this might sound funny, but sometimes it is really hard for me to write something. I mean, of all the things that you can be grateful for, I mean, it's astounding. And but it's real insight into me, how difficult it is sometimes. And when I get a gratitude from this other person, it it it's so wonderful to be touched by somebody else in that way.
Mm.
And it helps me to look out in a different way, in those moments or during the day because of what was written to me. So, I, and I just think it's really helpful practice to have. So I'm glad I'm doing it.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
thank you for telling us about it. It's
Yeah.
really inspiring. And you're doing what I talked about, kind of inviting a state of mind, inviting gratitude by doing it.
Yeah.
And I think it's not uncommon that sometimes you go through dry periods where you might not have the access to gratitude that you might have before. But it is really helpful to be engaged with another human being around this practice, isn't it? And receive, regardless of where you are, like somebody else kind of breaks in with their gratitude list, however you do it. And yeah, there's some freshness. Some freshness
Mm,
comes in. So it
mm,
sounds like a really wonderful, wonderful way to do it, to team
yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Hmm. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
And going outside, seeing the light. One thing occurred to me to say while I was listening, Virginia, is that depression from a meditative point of view is a low energy state, you know, and so it's really helpful if you do things that bring energy. And so when you went out and looked at the sky, first of all, looking at light in itself brings energy. And then the fact you were interested, there's something unusual in the sky that isn't what you usually expect to see there. And that interest is energizing.
Mm,
When you're interested in something, is energizing. And and sometimes you can actually arouse interest. Interest isn't just a passive phenomena. You can actually bring interest to something, um, like sort of taking a good look. Um, and some things are easy. I have to say, in the springtime, it's easy to find things that you want to look at. The pussy willows that are blooming, or the way that the bulbs are coming out of the ground right now. Easy to look at and be interested in. So just keep that in mind, that you need more stimulation, you need more energy, and interest is one thing that does that.
mm,
Interest, light, and then just physical movement. Um, getting out and walking um, is all that's good just for raising energy. And so I thought I'd mention that from a meditative point of view,
Yeah.
what that means.
Hmm. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for checking in. All right. Who else might want to check in tonight? So, Stephen.
You mentioned earlier becoming aware of unnecessary thoughts. And I've been,
Or just any thought. I don't know that I qualified it unnecessary, but just watching
well,
thought.
I've run into experiences where I'm caught up in thought and I'm pursuing it. And all of a sudden I realize this is an unnecessary thought. I don't need to pursue this. Um, it's not leading towards anything really meaningful. It might be meaningful for the mind, but not really. It's just processing information. And if I let go of that, I feel joyful and inspired by having made the effort to observe that dynamic and act on it.
Mhm.
Um, so it's a very enlightening, a very joyful experience to go through that process and um, come out the other side feeling great.
Yeah, it's great to feel freedom with respect to thinking. It's a rare experience for people. Oftentimes they feel very much caught in their thoughts. But it's a joyous thing to feel freedom in, in that whole realm.
Yep.
All right, thank you. So Conway.
Hey, Mark. Yes, I haven't checked in a really long time either. And I felt like saying something last week and I didn't. So tonight I will share. Um, I like, well, let's see. So I've meditated with you, I think, hundreds of times, literally.
Yeah, you've been coming for years.
Yeah. And I think that there are parts of the meditation practice that I really get and really understand and really know how to do. For example, when you were talking tonight about um, feeling your your felt sense of self in your body, at the end of the meditation when we're feeling our entire form and really being able to do that very clearly and then just going outside into the to feel the area around us, the area of awareness. So I really get that, and that's super helpful. um and last week's talk about the heart was very helpful for me. I'm really glad that you touched on that again. That's been a theme for me in these classes for a long time. Um, and I'm glad that you'll be sharing more about that in the next class. Um, my meditation practice, has honestly gotten a little stale. So I'm glad that you'll be encouraging us to, I forget how you said it, but to cultivate other states of mind, like, well, the ones you mentioned tonight was like awe and enjoyment, but just really focusing on the love piece, I think is really going to be good for me at this stage because again, I'm having some health problems. I've been having heartburn and acid reflux for a couple of months, and I've been working really hard to resolve that and take care of myself. And mindfulness is a big part of that practice. But sometimes when I'm meditating, I really have a very difficult time um, forgetting that I don't feel well. So I've been really obsessed with that for weeks and
Yeah.
weeks, and I'm starting to make some progress, which is good. So that's kind of my check-in, and then I would just, any kind of feedback that you have
Orders.
around that, feedback or questions, would be appreciated.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I hear you that there's some things that are troubling that are going on physically. And I think it is one of the dangers of the type of meditation we do that is very bodily centered, that when you're not feeling well, or there's some aspect of your body that's ailing, to have the focus be on the body, it kind of tempts us to stress about it, because there it is. It's right there. Something doesn't feel right. Something doesn't feel good. And yet, it's not why we're sitting down to meditate, isn't to become obsessed with the aches and pains in our body. So, one thing that you might do is notice, if you find yourself kind of obsessed with something that hurts or isn't right, see if you can find what there is to enjoy. I just find enjoyment to be really key. Like, what is it in your experience that you can just rest your mind on that's enjoyable? The breath, for one, is, usually something people can enjoy. It's, some people have trouble with the breath for various reasons. If asthma is your thing, maybe it's not so easy all the time. But find something in your experience that's enjoyable and let that be the focus. And that's completely legitimate to shift the focus from one part of the body to another. We tend to be obsessed with what's wrong. And then there's this really a part of the mind that is always, I call the anxious doer, that's always looking for what's wrong, it needs to be fixed. And so that gets aroused. And so if that's being aroused by your very meditation, that's not necessarily what we want to have happen. So just notice that. If it's getting aroused, notice your anxious doer. And then just very consciously see, like, what could I enjoy here? What would give me a sense of rest in my experience right now? And stay with that.
Okay.
Yeah. And, if the posture is at all uncomfortable for you, find a more comfortable posture. I don't know if that's part of it at all. The gastric thing's probably not. But that, be kind to yourself and let the actual meditation posture be comfortable, if you can find a more comfortable way to do it. So that's what occurs to me to say about that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sometimes I wonder if I should be, should I or could I direct some positive, loving energy towards this part of my body?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And I wonder, like, how much of my meditation should I be kind of trying to do that? And, if I'm sitting for 20 minutes or whatever, like, I found that if I was too distracted by my discomfort, that I would go into a loving kindness meditation towards the end and direct that at myself, but it
Yeah.
almost felt like,
That's great.
Yeah, and then, using the hands sometimes too to try to
Mhm.
send it in there, and
Beautiful.
yeah.
Yeah, use your hands, use the energy of your hands to communicate with your body as well.
Yeah.
It has an effect, sending loving thoughts to the body. It has an effect.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
And really it's the quality of the attention that you're giving to some place in the body that matters. And so if the attention is aversive,
Mhm.
in other words, kind of like, won't you go away, or you're annoying me, and that's what's felt in that part of the body. And so by doing loving kindness, you're kind of more guaranteeing that the energy that's being directed, because wherever the attention goes, energy goes there. If you're using loving kindness, then you're making it likely that that energy is going to be really feel good to whatever body part you're directing it toward.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Conway. Good to talk with you.
Yep.
So let's see, Jennifer or Nick.
Nick, hi.
Nick. Hi, Nick.
Yeah, I haven't checked in a while either. And I was thinking there's been three places where I've been trying to create this idea of spaciousness, and I was thinking it's actually thought and time and space. And the thought was really exactly what Stephen was saying, which is I am been noticing, I think, man, do I think a lot? I think, okay, what of these thoughts are useful thoughts? What of these thoughts are just thoughts that aren't necessarily useful or destructive? And then which of the thoughts are actually destructive? And, being aware of that is, it's a practice, and it's useful when I can, become aware of it, which is not always easy. Sometimes when I'm reflecting on thoughts that I think are innocuous, then I realize, that was actually not such a productive kind of thing. So trying to clear my mind of these kinds of things that aren't necessarily helpful. The time spaciousness is, I am just a organized, scheduled, person. That's just the way I am. And, I've always struggled with, got to get done.
In that scheduledness, are you anxious or do you flow?
So when you first introduced the idea of the anxious doer, it resonated with me, because it's when I feel it's bad is when I become anxious.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so and that
once in a while, busyness can feel fun. Actually going from one thing to another and being in a flow can actually be kind of invigorating. So I just want to mention that it doesn't belong to busyness itself. It belongs to the anxiousness that comes with it.
Yes. And when you mention interests, like, or we were talking about interests, like my problem is I have too many interests, and, and I fill my plate and it gets too full.
Yeah.
But it's just silly to get anxious about it, even though I sometimes do. So when I feel
just to break in, the interest that might be important to have more of is just being, so like I have a lot of interests too, like things I'm into and so forth, but that tends to fill up my schedule. You know what I mean? But there's this moment where I step out my door and there's the smell of the air, you know, and that's just about being. That doesn't end up on my list of interests, you know, that I'm kind of the stuff that I fill my schedule with. It's pure grace in a way, that smell of the air. There's also a pussy willow right outside my door. And this is the time of year for that pussy willow. So I'm kind of immediately met with how big are the buds, you know, is it coming out yet? So that's the kinds of interests that you might want to seed more in your life, is like what draws your interest that's not an interest, you know, not
It's
a
funny because
task creating interest.
I was thinking like I need to make those my interests. It's like, and so like the third one was, you know, we talked about the sky and the night sky. I mean, you know, I'm no different than anybody else on this, but it's like, you know, when I look up, and we don't get it that much here because we're in this city more or less, and but you know, on a clear night and looking up at the stars, I'm always in awe of, you know, these huge balls of energy and how many there are, and it just is always in the, you know, the sheer vastness of it all. It's always awe-inspiring to me. And I was thinking, yeah, I need to just walk outside at night and put that on my list. So I don't know if that's a counterproductive way of thinking about it.
Yeah, it's kind of counterproductive.
So
I do it because I want to. It's just like an urge. I can't say that it's on my list at all to go out at night and look up. It helps that I have a dog and she has to go out, you know, that can be helpful. But
yeah, so that's it. I just want to share that.
all right. Good. Good to talk with you. All right. Anybody else? Anybody else want to check in? Kind of like this, talking to people that I haven't talked to for a while. So if no one's just dying to talk, I love to finish a course off with just a little kindness meditation. So,
Hey, Mark.
it's on my.
Yeah, so thanks, Mark. Thanks for the people who shared tonight. My cohorts for sure. I am going through retirement, and after being at the same job for 35 years, and I'm going out with a batch of people who, you know, we all have some trepidation, and you know, they're saying, "Oh, don't worry, it's just the next chapter," and we're all like, "Oh yeah, yeah, it's like the last chapter." But I really am grateful for having had the job and kind of a career, and it's really supported what I've always wanted to do. And in some parts, I feel like it's a, a teeny hint of guilt because, you know, I would wish it for everybody that, you know, I feel like I've committed the perfect crime, even though, you know, I've had to work for it. And in going into retirement, I feel like I also have kind of a secret weapon, which would be some of the training that I've had in your class and some other things in my life that kind of give me confidence to go forward. So I'm in a good spot, and I just wanted to share that with you and thank you, and happy retirement to me. That's all.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm happy to hear that, Jack. And it is a huge transition, I have to say. I've certainly talked to a number of people going through it in my career, and it's a big transition and exciting. So I wish you the best with it. Finding what you want to do that's not what you have to do to be paid. It's kind of the key.
Yeah, it's remarkable that, you know, I've always had so many interests in things that I said I'd love to do, but you know, I just can't because of work. And now I'm being unmasked.
Exactly.
We'll see what comes.
Yeah. All right. So just a brief kind of loving kindness here at the end before I send you off. for whatever reason, I'm kind of wanting to start this with having everyone just send goodwill to everyone else in the class. We usually start this with yourself, but I feel like that this would be really helpful. So just drop down into your heart. And find that feeling of loving kindness, which is just wishing goodwill to another human being. And then you can, if you want to, you could put it on gallery and look at people, or just remember people with your eyes closed. You've seen various people pop up on your screen as they talk. And as is always the case with human beings, there's maybe some that we are more drawn to than others, or we feel more affinity to. But each and every one of us is a complex human being with a whole life of experience. So wish each and every person here that they thrive, that they be healthy and happy, and that their lives be free of fear and full of ease. You can wish them all spaciousness of mind and heart. And now send that to yourself as well. Just include you in the class. Wish for spaciousness of mind and heart, health and happiness, freedom from fear, full of ease of being. And let that radiate out in all directions from the heart center to however you can imagine all beings everywhere. Human beings, animal beings, plant beings, other kinds of beings. So for a moment, you can just experience yourself as a beacon of goodwill. And out into the universe, to beings everywhere, on this plane of existence, on other planes of existence. Sabe sata sukha hontu. May all beings be happy. May all beings be well. All right, everybody.